Well, hello, I'm Alex, and today I've got an idea for making zines. So you can use this simple zine format to develop a daily practice. It's small, it's little, you can take it with you anywhere you go. It's perfect for prompts, and it's perfect for when you don't have time. You know how I'm always saying, it's easy to spend a few minutes a day in creative play. I'm sure some of you are like, well, it's easy for you to say you're an artist. So, I'm making these videos for you to take play breaks with me. This is your creativity timeout, baby. Just grab whatever supplies you have on hand, work alongside me, don't worry. I'm keeping this no fuss fabulous, easy peasy. Go ahead, check it out. Now I want to show you examples of different kinds of stamps. So apart from using Ava craft foam, which I've already shown you, how are stamps made? Well, let me show you different ways I've either made them myself or I've come across them. And I'm going to try to go chronologically here. So when I first started making stamps, I learned about it in a workshop. And what we did was make stamps. We carved our stamps out of lino blocks. So these are pieces of wood with a layer of linoleum. Now you could actually buy the linoleum like this and carve a stamp and then glue this on a support. So the wood here is simply the support. But you can buy them already prepared like this, and then you can cut them down with woodworking tools to be smaller, because usually you buy them in larger, sort of, just think of like a big block. Okay, so now that I've shown you that, so here are three different stamps, right? So let me show you what those look like when they're stamped. So this is a chair. And it looked like this, and this one looks like this. So yeah, you can even see here it says linoleum block. Linoleum block. And this one, when you print it like that, okay? So nowadays, paints or inks for stamping with hard blocks, because this linoleum is really hard and only gets harder with age. I mean, it's hard as a rock. So to stamp with these, you used to have to use a type of printing ink, which is super sticky and thick. It's sticky and thick. And you used to have to use a brayer and some kind of support. This is plexiglass. And you would scoop some of that paint out there, and then you would flatten it out like this to get it nicely distributed across your roller here. And then you would roll it on, and then you would stamp. Now you would stamp with a lot of pressure, so you might use a machine for that has like a roller that you crank your paper through. But you would need basically a printing press for that. And I used to spend money to have like an hour to print stuff with the equipment in this center. So that might be available to you. The other thing I have been able to do is just with a sponge and some paint, put paint on a sponge and then transfer the paint and sort of build it up a little bit, and then print that way. And what I use is I take a piece of foam and put it underneath my paper so that when I push, I can push with a lot of effort, and it's pushing against the foam, and it helps for a more even print. But just so you can see, when I first started playing with stamps, I had to use carving tools and a lot of band-aids to make linoleum block stamps, and I made a ton, and I would make even a series of prints. So there would be big blocks with imagery on them, and then I made all these individual ones with like symbols and shapes on them. So there's that. Since then, these tools are so old, they've oxidized, they're rusty, and I don't use those anymore. And I replaced them with a very simple kit. So it's just one handle that comes with several tips, and because each tip allows you to carve in a certain way, and that works as well. So this is a much easier way to experiment with cutting into linoleum or rubber, which I'm about to show you. Instead of buying a whole set of tools, you can just buy one little box like this. And so that kind of takes care of talking about linoleum blocks. I've also made stamps out of stamping rubber. So this is a special kind of rubber that's made for carving into. It's super smooth, it works really nicely. And before I ever found out that this existed, I used to make stamps out of erasers. And here's some examples of some eraser stamps I've made. And this is the kind of eraser that doesn't look like it's going to like get all grainy, but that is what happens. Erasers get harder over time, and they sort of start to fall apart they like turn into sand. So every time you use them, you leave like little bits behind. This rubber will not do that. This is meant to make stamps. So this has all the advantages of how easy it is to use and carve into an eraser without all the little bits and without it getting harder over time and it's basically falling apart. This is a very old stamp I made, and it looks like an eraser, but I believe this was a white rubber, a little bit thicker than this guy. Well, a little bit. It's like twice as thick. So this was a rubber for stamp making, just like this is. And I've seen these in different colors. I think it depends on the manufacturer. And this, I've had this for over 25 years, so it's still holding up nicely. And so let's see, what else did I want? I wanted to show you what some of these stamps might look like real quick. So as you can see, you can cut into this kind of rubber, and you can cut with an X-Acto knife and just get some solid stamps here. So this guy would be this guy, and you can just, here's a triangle, I don't know if that's showing, but here's a stair, right? The little house is this guy. So I guess I used some yellow ink the last time I used these. And all I'm doing is using an X-Acto knife to cut it out of the actual rubber. So you could draw with a pencil and then follow your pencil lines. And you would use an X-Acto knife with a blade. You might need to go back and forth between a pointed blade and a curved blade, depending on what you're cutting. And there's that. So making even something like this is possible. And then if you do have a carving tool, like the one I showed you in the kit, there's a bit on here which is like a tiny, like the smallest one, which is like a V. I think it's this one. Oh yeah, it's actually this one. So this one is the one I use most often, and that tip allows you to carve out. So now you can actually make a groove and carve some of that rubber out and make your stamps that way. Because you're probably not going to want just all your stamps to be solid shapes. You're probably going to want them to have some kind of design on them, and that's when you need to carve. And you can't carve with an X-Acto. So if you're going to be carving, you will need a tool, but they're not hard to find, and you can probably get away with just one tip. Other stamps I've come across. Well, this is an old stamp from I don't know where I found this, a flea market, and let's see. So the way this guy stamps out is like this. So this is the quality of stamp that you will get if you order it from a company. There's still companies that make stamps. Office supply stores might still work with some of these. They basically will take your image and digitally, create a file that they can then laser cut the rubber and then glue it onto a support for you. And you can get some super fine details this way. So you can have a stamp made, or you can find ones that have already been made maybe in a store or a flea market. This is a more recent type of stamp. This came from a kit of like stamps for the holidays, with like snow, Christmassy type design. So this is just a snowflake, and that's what that looks like. Now, typically, if I find a kit of these, I don't even care what they are, because I want the support, and I'll peel this part right off, because these supports are so great for my Ava foam stamps. And the other kind of stamp I've come across is a silicone stamp. So that's what this is. I've never actually used it. I think it came with this, otherwise I don't know where this came from. But this is a piece of plexiglass. I believe it's a support, because the silicone will sort of stick to it long enough for you to stamp with it, I think. So there. If you find some kind of kit that comes with a bunch of these supports, these work for the Ava foam, of course. And I wish I had a bunch of these, and I don't know where I found it, but someday I'll find more. Okay. And last but not least, I want to show you some more images of some larger Ava foam stamps I've made. So all that carving you have to do to use the different kinds of materials. With Ava foam, you just have to use a sharp pencil. So as you can see, that's what this looks like. Just using a sharp pencil. And these are coasters. So if you have some coasters, those make great supports for larger stamps. And you can literally just take your coaster, trace around it, cut that piece of foam out, stick that foam on, and then use a pencil to do your design, and you're done. So this design is here, and this design is this one. And then of course you can take, these are also actually pieces of wood sold as coasters that you can paint, so like do-it-yourself coasters, this with rounded edges, square format. Here I just cut a bunch of shapes and stuck them on, so that's how you get this kind of a stamp. And here I did the same. That's how you get this. And I'm repurposing these. I painted on the back. So that's how I repurpose anything that's a coaster or a small piece of wood that I want as a support. It's getting repurposed. Okay, I hope you had fun taking this tiny play break with me. Be honest, it was super easy. You know, when it comes to your creativity, it's never about what you're making. It's about how you feel while you're making it, right? Okay, I've got lots more videos on my YouTube channel here, so subscribe, stay tuned, play. Come back and get your daily dose of make stuff feel good energy. Thank you so much for being here, and sparkle.